Hey, how's it going? Alex here from IdeaSpot. In today's video, we are going to learn how to transfer or migrate a WordPress website over to Plesk. Okay, so why transfer to Plesk? Now, a few of you have actually asked me to make this specific video because you're interested in learning to transfer to Plesk, but Plesk is a great control panel for web hosting and is good for managing a WordPress server. And there is a free version of Plesk, which is a great advantage. And there are some very cheap, high-performance VPS host services like Vultr, DigitalOcean, and Amazon Web Services. You might have seen my earlier Vultr tutorial. I'll put the link in the description for that. That will run Plesk for free. And they are cheap because you need to manage them yourself, but you get good performance at a very low cost. So you'll obviously need to learn how to use Plesk to do this tutorial. So I've done that in a previous tutorial. Again, that link is in the description where you'll learn how to set up Plesk on a Vultr VPS. That's great value. So check that one out for sure. All right, now there are lots of methods of transferring a WordPress website from one host to another. I'm going to be covering three very good methods. Two of them use popular plugins. Method one is using the all-in-one migration plugin. So it's not too complex. All you do is install the plugin, export your site, install WordPress on Plesk, and then we change the host file on our computer to point to our new IP, and then we install the all-in-one migration plugin on our new host, and we just import the site. That should go fairly smoothly. Point the DNS over to the new Plesk IP and you're good to go. So this method is pretty easy, but it is limited to a 512 megabyte site on the free version, or if you've got a bigger website, it costs $69 for the pro version. So this is the easiest and most reliable method, but it's not going to be suitable for everyone if your site is big or you want a free solution. Method two is using the Duplicator plugin. Now, this is the second most popular plugin for doing WordPress migrations. The process is similar. It involves exporting your WordPress website with the plugin and then uploading the files into Plesk on your new server. And then you create a new database in Plesk. That's pretty easy. And you do the same thing with your host file. You point your host file over to the new IP, and then you basically just run the installer on Plesk. That'll set up your WordPress website on Plesk, and finally point the DNS over to your new IP, and you are good to go. Now, the free version is unlimited in terms of how many megabytes it can handle in the migration, but you can run into some problems on slow web hosts or if you have a very large WordPress website that you're transferring. So you can work around some of those problems manually. If you've got a really big website, you can go into your control panel and just zip up your WordPress into one big archive, upload that archive into Plesk and then uncompress it. I'll talk about that method a bit later, but that is a good workaround if you still want a free method of moving a large website. Method three is just get someone else to do it. I mean, let's be honest, for a lot of us, this is not a job that we're going to do very often in our lives, moving web hosts. And a lot of hosts will actually do it for you as part of the sign-up package. Hosts like Cloudways, SiteGround, Kinsta. I'll put links in the description. They cost a little bit more, but you'll get this level of service where they will handle this aspect of hosting for you. And even if you don't have one of these hosts that will do it for you, you can always find a freelancer on Fiverr.com. They can do it for as cheap as sometimes $5. So it can be quite an easy way to save a headache and just spend a few dollars, get someone else to handle this job for you. But for the rest of us, I think learning this as a skill, if this is something you want to work on day to day and do quite a few of these in your life, it's definitely worth learning how to do this. Okay, now here's kind of what I'm talking about over on Fiverr.com. If you just search for WordPress migration, and I'm searching by best selling here, you can find some quite cheap solutions here. So for example, this one will clone, migrate or transfer a WordPress site starting at $5, and they've done 780 jobs, all pretty much 5-star reviews. They'll do large websites, VPSs like we want to do here. So not particularly expensive. People can do this quite simply if they've got good experience doing back-end web development. This is nothing for them. So you can save a few hours work by just getting someone else to handle it for you. I'll put links in the description for these gigs so you can just handle it using this method if it turns out that the actual methods that I'm using in the tutorial are too difficult or you run into troubles that you can't overcome yourself. All right, now that that's out of the way, let's get on to learning method number one, which is transferring the website using all-in-one migration plugin. Let's get started. Okay, so this is the website that we're going to be migrating today, ideaspot.space. I've just put a basic template starter site on here. Now, it doesn't really matter where you're hosted. This method will work for any WordPress hosting at all, so you can follow this method quite easily. So we are going to take this website and move it over to Plesk. Now, I've got Plesk set up already. If you don't know how to set up Plesk, check out my previous tutorial. I'll put that link in the description, as I said before. But you'll need to set up Plesk and add your domain, set up your SSL, get that all ready first. It doesn't take too long. It takes about 15 to 20 minutes. What we are going to do is transfer the site from this host over to Plesk. And then when that's all done and it's all working properly, then we are going to change the DNS to point to the new IP address over at Plesk. So this way, when we do the migration, we'll experience no downtime. You'll get a seamless transition from the old host over to your new host. So now I'm in the dashboard of our website, and if you go to plugins and add new and search for migration, the two most popular methods are all-in-one WP migration and Duplicator. Now both of these are free. Both of them have over 1 million active installations, and I've had good success with both of these. This one is probably a little bit better, but it has a 500 megabyte limit. So there'll be a lot of WordPress websites where the free version is going to be too big. So you can try a Duplicator, and this one doesn't have any size limit, but this one's a little more tricky to use. This one is easier. I do enjoy this one a little bit more because it's a bit more point and click and a little bit simpler. The Pro version is $69, so you can avoid the limit if you get the Pro version. But in this tutorial, I'm going to be covering both free methods. So I'll do a small website using this one, and I'll do the same website using this one. And you can see for yourself how much complexity is involved in the other one. It's not too bad. I think anyone should be able to do either method. One thing that is best practice before doing any migration is to deactivate any optimization plugins. So WP Rocket, W3 Total Cache, WP Fastest Cache, Lightspeed Cache in this case is on here. So I'm going to just deactivate that before we do the migration. Now, we may or may not need these caching plugins on the new server. In this case, I'm not moving to another Lightspeed server, so I'm not going to use this on the next server anyway. So I could just go ahead and delete it if I wanted to as well. But for the other plugins like Rocket, we just deactivate it now, and then when we're done, we can reactivate those plugins when we're finished. So let's get started with all-in-one migration. So just go ahead, install and activate all-in-one migration. You'll get all-in-one WP migration down here, and we are going to export a copy of our website. So from here, we'll go export to file, and it'll go preparing to export, and this will take a minute. After a few seconds, you'll get a little progress indicator there. However many files your WordPress website will be indicated there, and this thing will tick along, and just wait while this completes. It can take a long time for a big site, but there is that 500 megabyte limit on the free version. So if you hit the free version limit, it will stop, and you'll need to either use the Pro version or use the Duplicator method that I'm going to be covering later in the video. So after a few minutes, this will complete and you'll be able to download a copy of the export. So let's go ahead and download that one. You'll see it downloading down there. This can take a while if you've got a big website. This is just a small demo site, so only 80 megabytes. It was over pretty quickly, but just be patient while that one downloads. Okay, so that's downloaded all successfully. We can close out of this. You can actually find a copy of this later on if you want. It'll be under your backups. You'll find your copy of your WordPress export sitting there on the server. You can download it again at any time just by clicking the download button there. Anyway, now it's time to take our exported file and install that file into Plesk. So let's head back to Plesk under WordPress. We're going to set up a copy of WordPress on here. The first time you install WordPress, you'll get an option here. You can also install from here. It doesn't really matter. You'll get some options on how to install WordPress here. Now you can pretty much leave all this as default. You may want to change the website title. You get a random title generated there, which is kind of cute, but I might just change that to IdeaSpot for this demo. And you'll notice you've got a username and password for your WordPress site automatically generated there. You'll get a password that will generate a strong password. So just keep those username and passwords on hand. So make sure you keep those details somewhere safe and then click install. As WordPress installs, you'll get a little progress indicator down there. When it's done, it will say WordPress was installed and you'll get an installation complete pop up here. From here, we can install plugins or click no thanks. I'll go with no thanks for now. From here, we can see our new WordPress install. It says it's got one issue there. If we open this up, it says fix security. If we click that, it'll just say check security. Usually when it's freshly installed, it hasn't set up the directory permissions properly yet, but when we recheck it, it's usually all good. So that looks all fine. We can go back and it looks like we're all good. While we're here, it's worth turning Nginx caching on. This gives you a little performance boost in terms of your WordPress speed. So turn Nginx caching on at this point. And after a while, if we refresh our page, we'll see that the current website is previewed in our window. But if we go over to websites and domains, we can actually preview the Plesk version of the install just by clicking preview here. And that will take us to a preview of the fresh WordPress install. Now, in order to start working on the new website while the other one is live, we will need to do something called editing our hosts file. So I'll show you how to do that in Windows. For Mac, it's a little different. We'll discuss that later, but for Windows, we can open Notepad in administrator mode. So I've got Notepad on my desktop. You can just search the start menu if it's not already on your desktop, but we just go ahead and right click it, and we're going to run that as administrator. This notification won't show up on the video, but click yes, and now we open our host file. And you'll find your host file under Windows, System32, drivers, etc. So you can just navigate there through C and you'll find it. Once you're in this folder, you'll need to click the drop down there and all files. You'll find your host file there. We're going to open that one. So here is our host file. We just need to put our IP address and our domain name in here. So our IP address is this number here. So we're going to copy that out. There we go. And back in Notepad, we'll pop that IP address in there. We can delete out the HTTP and the slashes and then put a tab, and we're going to put in idspot.space. So that should be all good. We can save that. Now, if you are using a Mac to change your host file, I've got a guide over at setapp.com, how to edit a Mac hosts file. They've got instructions here. Basically, you just need to load up the terminal and load up Nano, and you'll be able to edit your host file in there. They've got a little video here, quite easy to follow, but I'm using Windows. I've done it through Notepad, but Mac, it's not that much more difficult, so go ahead and follow these. I'll put that link in the description as well. All right, now back in our browser, we can actually go over to idspot.space. Let's go there. We'll get an insecure error because the IP address doesn't have the certificate installed on it yet. Go ahead and go to advanced and proceed. That might be a little bit different depending on what browser you're using. I'm using Chrome, but anyway, we'll get to our WordPress dashboard on the new server. So from here, we can go ahead and log in. So you can log in through the login link there, or you can just go to WP admin there and go ahead and log in. We'll be on our login screen. And here we'll need the credentials we used when we installed WordPress on Plesk. So we can get those from what we saved earlier, or if you've lost them, go ahead back to your Plesk dashboard under WordPress. You can click setup and you can actually find those credentials just in here. You can click the I to show the password. So I'm just going to pop those in there and log in. Here we go in our WordPress dashboard. From here, we just need to install the all-in-one migration plugin. So we're going to go add new. We're going to add the all-in-one migration here. So I'm going to search for migration and install that one and then activate. And then we've got our all-in-one migration plugin in our menu there. We're going to import. And what we need to do here is increase the maximum upload file size. So let's go ahead and click this link. It'll take us to a page where we can download the file extension. So number 4, use the plugin. And we are going to download the basic all-in-one migration import plugin. So this free one will do sites smaller than 512 megabytes. And for the premium version, you can do unlimited websites in terms of their size. So if your website is bigger than that, you'll need to go for this version or wait for the end of the video. I'll use the duplicator method, which can get around this limitation with a different plugin. So anyway, I've downloaded the basic version that's in my downloads folder there. Let's go back to our WordPress dashboard. Let's go to plugins and let's add a new plugin. We're just going to upload that plugin that we just downloaded. So there we go. And we choose our file. We're going to grab that all-in-one migration extension, open that, install it. That's installed successfully. Then we're going to activate it. There we go. Now that's all good. So we've got that one active and that one active as well. Let's go back and we're going to import, and we're going to import from a file, and we're just going to get that idspot.wordpress export that we got from the website. And this import will take a little while, so just be patient while our website imports onto the new server. So after that upload, it's going to unpack. You'll get a warning message here saying it will overwrite this WordPress website with our site that we're migrating over. So we're going to click proceed. And this begins the migration process, and the site has been imported successfully, and click finish. So from here, we should have our site all migrated over. We will get asked to log in again. Now, these credentials will be the same credentials that we used on our old idea.space WordPress install. So we're going to have to put those in here. So I've just put those credentials in there and we can log back in. And with any luck, we can go ahead and view our site, and we should get our migrated site all set up. So that looks all good. From here, it's good to just go ahead, click some links and just test that everything has migrated successfully. This looks all just fine. So I think we're all good. All right, now that our website has migrated over and it's all looking good, we can point the DNS IP address to our new IP address on the Plesk server. So I'm using Cloudflare for my DNS management. It doesn't matter what you're using. The process is more or less the same. We've got our old IP addresses sitting right there in the DNS manager, and we just have to put the new IP address in. So if you've forgotten the IP address, that's cool. Go to Plesk. You can find it under your main menu. In the system overview, the IP address will be sitting right there. You can copy that out, go back to here, and we're going to change those IP address numbers over to the new server. There we go. That should be all good. And the other thing we'll do is go back to our hosts file in administrator mode again, and we can remove this line from the host file so we can use the proper IP address now that our migration is done. Or we can just add a little hash mark and comment out that line so it's no longer in play. But either way, you can go ahead, you can delete it, or you can just add a hash mark. I might add a hash mark just in case I need to go over this process again in the future. So let's go ahead and save that. So now we should be able to see our fully migrated site all done. It's best to clear your cookies first. I'm using Chrome, so under settings, I type clear and clear browsing data. We can go ahead and clear our cookies. And then I'm going to open a new tab and go for ideaspot.space. And that should load up all fine. There we go. Got the padlock icon there. So this is on the new server. We've got SSL. We've got our migration fully completed. Okay, for our second method, we're going to move this same website over a different way. This time I'm going to use the Duplicator plugin. So go ahead, search for migration, and the second one, Duplicator, install and activate that one. You'll get the Duplicator option in your menu there. Let's go there, and we are going to create a new package. Okay, so it will generate a name for the package there automatically. We can leave that as default. We're going to leave these two options unticked and scroll down, hit next. So it'll scan the site for a second to find any issues. I've come up all good here. One thing you might end up seeing is a notice under the size check. If it's over 150 megabytes, which a lot of WordPress websites will be, you might get a little notification there to saying that some budget hosts may cause a timeout. Now, usually this isn't a big deal, and you can safely ignore that. But if you've got a huge website, you can click more details. They do have some information about avoiding timeout issues. Now, there's also another method I'll talk about later that involves breaking the migration into two steps, doing the files and the database separately. That can avoid a lot of issues as well. One thing I will do while I'm here before we click build is to pause Cloudflare. If you're using Cloudflare, you may get a timeout error because this takes a little while to migrate. So I'm going to pause Cloudflare while we do this, click confirm, so we don't get a Cloudflare timeout while we're building our backup. So let's hit build. And let's wait for this to build. So again, to get to that pause function, that was just in our Cloudflare dashboard under the domain that we're working on. In the overview, if you scroll down, you'll find the pause will be down here under advanced actions. But we just have to be patient and wait for this package to finish building. All right, so after a few minutes, we'll get the package completed message. We can go ahead and download our installer and our archive files in just a second. I'm going to go back to Cloudflare and turn my Cloudflare back on. So under advanced actions, enable Cloudflare again. So that looks all good. Back to our packages. Now we can download these files. So I'm going to download the installer. So we should get a file called installer.php and download our archive. We should get our archive file downloaded. And it'll be that name there. And you can also find these files under our packages menu here. You can download the installer and the archive through the packages menu there at any time in the future if you like. All right, now that we have our website exported, we can go back to Plesk and we can actually import our website into Plesk. So back on Plesk, we can see we've got our domain set up and we don't have any WordPress. You might have noticed I set up WordPress earlier for our all-in-one migration demo. I've gone ahead and removed that site. We're going to do this from scratch again for this duplicator method. So in this case, we're not going to actually install WordPress. All we have to do for this method is upload our files and create a database. So the first thing I might do is create the database. So let's go to databases and we are going to add a database. And we've got to give this database a name. I'm going to call it WordPress_idea site. You can give it pretty much any name you like, just something that's obvious so you know what it is. And we can give our database a username and a password. So you can actually generate strong passwords in here. But just keep these details somewhere safe because we are going to use these in a minute. And I'm going to go ahead and press OK. So when that's all done, we can assign this database to a site. We can click that one and we're going to relate that one to ideaspot.space and click OK. Now we have to upload those duplicator files. So we're going to go to Files and we are going to go to HTTP docs. And here we go. We're going to upload our files here. All right, so in our downloads folder, we will have our installer PHP and our archive zip. We're going to select both of those and drop them into our Plesk folder. Now, this will take a while to upload, especially if it's a fairly large website. This can take a minute to upload, so just be patient while this uploads. All right, so our files are already uploaded here, so that looks all good. The next step is changing our host file to point over to Plesk so we can run the installer. All right, so we go to Notepad and we run that as administrator. We click yes on here. You won't be able to see that part, but we click yes and then we go to open and we go to our hosts folder. Again, that is under Windows, System32 drivers, etc. Or use the Mac version in the description. We open our hosts file there and then we paste in our IP address for Plesk and our domain name there. We go ahead and click save. Okay, so now I'm going to open a new incognito window here. Now you can use incognito mode or you can clear your cookies. Either way is cool. You just need to clear your cookies or don't use cookies in incognito. Go to your website, ideaspot.space. You'll get a security message there, advanced, and just proceed normally. We'll see that we don't have any website set up on our new server just yet. So we just go there and type /installer.php. That will take us to our duplicator installer. So it'll run a little check here. It'll say good and pass for everything. It does have a little warning message here, but we can go ahead and safely ignore that one for now. We scroll down, click here and click next. Now it's going to extract our archive onto our new server. And this is where we put in our database credentials that we set up in Plesk earlier. So make sure you've saved those and we're going to plug those in here. So we've got our database name there, the database username and the database password go in there. If you forgot to save any of those details, you can go to databases and in Plesk, click on users and you should be able to find the actual, there's the username. You can set a new password if you need to set a new password. The database name is there, obviously, so you can get those privileges anytime you want if you've lost them. But let's get back to our tutorial. So back on the duplicator process, now we have these details in there. We can go ahead and click test the database. We'll have a pass and a good. We can click next. We click OK, and it is installing our database. And now we have to update our data. We click next. There we go. That looks all good. Now we can click admin login and auto delete the installer file after login. So we go ahead and click admin login. Here we go. So here we can just put in the username and password of the WordPress install that we migrated over. So that'll be the old credentials that we used when we set up our original website. We log in here and we'll get a few little green ticks here. Everything looked like it ran successfully. So this is all good. We can actually go and visit our website. And it looks like our migration is all good. So given that the migration is all good, we can go back to Cloudflare and point the IP address over to our new Plesk server and we are done with our migration. So back in Cloudflare DNS, we go ahead under DNS for our domain. We go ahead and plug in our Plesk IP address for our new server. There we go. And now we can go back to our hosts file. We can remove that name given that the migration is all complete. Now we can save that. And if we load up a new incognito window, I'm going to go to ideaspot.space and we can see that our migration looks all good now. We are all done and we are running on our new server. So Congratulations if you've made it this far. You've learned 2 different ways of migrating over to Plesk. I will mention briefly one bonus method that works quite well for very large websites. You can do this for free. You'll notice that when you download the packages from Duplicator, you'll get an installer and you'll get your archive zip. This archive zip, if you actually look inside of the archive zip, all it is a zipped up copy of your WordPress public HTTP folder. So you can actually make this manually. All you have to do is go into your control panel file manager and zip up your WordPress files. I can show you in the Plesk file system briefly. Most file managers are pretty similar. All you have to do is under your HTTP docs, you'll have all your files. Sometimes it'll be called public HTML. It doesn't really matter. You'll find your WordPress files in there. They'll be called WP admin, content includes. There'll be these files down here like index, default, WP config. So you'll know you're in the right place if that's what it looks like. You can go ahead and just select all of them and add them to an archive or zip them up or compress them, whatever you have to do on your file system to make an archive of your files. In Plesk, you just go like there and you add to archive. But it doesn't really matter. All you do is make the zip of all your WordPress files, download that zip. You basically have the Duplicator archive, and then all you need to do is, instead of trying to package the whole website, all you have to do is package the database in Duplicator, and there's a way of doing that. I'll show you how to do that. So all you do in Duplicator is under Duplicator packages, when we create a new package, rather than packaging the whole website, all we do is archive only the database. So we don't need to do the files. We can do the files manually by zipping them up in the control panel file manager and using that for our files and using Duplicator for only the database. And then you go ahead, click next. And this is way, way quicker. So it'll scan the site, go ahead and say yes. We'll go build. There we go. Package is completed. Very, very easy. Only 1 megabytes for this database, but your database should only be a few megabytes usually. So we install, we download our installer, we download our archive, and then all we do is go to our new website on Plesk. We put everything in this HTTP docs folder, unzip the files for WordPress, put the installer PHP, and put that archived database in there. And then we run the same process again. It's much more reliable for very large websites. This exact process is detailed on the Duplicator website. It's called a 2-part install. So it is what I described, basically manually copying the WordPress files and then copying the database using Duplicator. So those are the 2 steps which I just described, but I'll link to this in the description so you've got a full set of instructions if you want to go about doing things this way, because it can be more reliable for very large websites, especially if you're experiencing timeouts and errors on slow hosting with big websites. I'd go about it doing this method rather than trying to do it through the plugin. All right, congratulations on making it to the end. Hopefully you've managed to transfer your website over to Plesk. If not, like I said earlier, you can get a pretty cheap service on Fiverr to do that for you. I'll put that link in the description. But from here, what you should do is look at setting up a Plesk VPS somewhere. I've got a pretty good Vultr tutorial. I put the Vultr video up here if you haven't seen that one already. I really love using Vultr to set up a high frequency CPU WordPress server. Really cool way of running WordPress for cheap. I really enjoyed making that one, so check that one out. I'll put that up there. But anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.